So my name is Bruce Starr. For those of you that don't know me, there's just a small handful of people. What you might not know is that my name is also Bruce Starr, the love coach. I've been studying relationships for around 45 years. And when some of you were studying massage therapy or to be doctors or lawyers, I was so confused about relationships that I said, I've got to learn whatever I can so that I don't end up old and gray and by myself, dying in my own bed all by myself, because that could have very easily have happened. So the way it started for me, funny enough, I was living in Boston, and Boston has 124 colleges and universities. So imagine every September going to school in a place where tens of thousands of, I wasn't interested in the guys, the girls, freshman girls coming in from Connecticut and New Hampshire and New York and New Jersey. Every year there was a lot more people coming in, and it was a lot of fun. I had a great time, but the more I got into having a good time there, the more I realized that it wasn't all a good time. Relationships weren't necessarily all a good time. I thought it was going to be. And when I started hitting some bumps in the road, I kind of didn't know what to do. So I turned to studying whatever could help me figure people out. And the very first thing that I studied was, I used to look at a newspaper, a Miami Herald, years and years and years ago. The astrologer in the Miami Herald was, anybody know? Sidney Omar. Does that name sound familiar to some of you? So Sidney Omar, he was as good as it gets. And I couldn't understand how I would come back that day from going wherever I was going and doing what I was doing. And he would say, you had a bad day today, you should have just stayed home. And it was like one of those days where it was a bad day and I should have stayed home. And then the next day I went out, it was great, and everybody was positive, and he said, oh, you had a great day today, didn't you? And I said, what is this? What is going on? So just a short, funny story. I was living in Boston at the time. And when I got home from spending the winter down with my parents in Florida, I called up the New England Astrological Society. And I said, I want a reading with Sidney Omar. I want to find out how this all works, this astrology stuff. I thought it was a lot of malarkey. And he says, well, where do you live? I said, I live in Watertown. He said, Watertown? He says, yeah, the president of the New England Astrological Society lives in Watertown. I said, wow, out of all of Massachusetts, the president lives in my town. So I said, well, where does she live? And when he told me the name of the street, it was 1 block away. So hung up that phone and went and knocked on her door. She's an incredible lady, and she taught me, she did my chart for me. So it was like the first time in my life I understood who I was in the eyes of whatever at the time. I said, how does this work? And so I got deeper into it, and then the same woman taught psychic development classes. And I took them. And that's really what started me in my spiritual growth. I've had some wonderful, incredible teachers to help me with relationships. One lady you'll know, I started studying the Course in Miracles. Anybody? Yes. A majority, Course in Miracles, in the 80s, and a lady would travel from Los Angeles to a small church in the Upper West Side of Manhattan to teach A Course in Miracles. And I heard a tape of hers, and it said God and money. And I said, wow, I could use help with both of those. So I went to see this lady, and it turned out to be Marianne Williamson. Marianne was my teacher of A Course in Miracles for a few years. And towards the end of of doing that, I said to her, you know, I had come back from New York and I was a talent agent and manager. I was pretty good at picking out talent. I mean, I knew Jim Carrey, when I saw him in the early days, was going to be a big star, and then, you know, just he exploded because he's just so talented. It was things like that. I'm just able to see talent. We all are. And when I used to go see Mary Ann, I said to her one day, I said, Mary Ann, it's great that you're coming here and 100 or 150 people can see you and learn from you, but there should be a lot more people that can learn from you. And she says, well, what do you suggest? I said, well, why don't we write an article? And let's get an article in a newspaper or a magazine, and that should be, you know, a kind of a good start. She said, okay. And then when I went home that night, I said to myself, well, wait a second, why don't we just write a book? Because Mary Ann had, by that time, had hundreds and hundreds of cassettes, recordings of her presentations. And I said to her, I said, Mary Ann, you have all these audio tapes. Why don't we pick out like a dozen or 15 subjects that we can put into a book that would be about relationships? I said, have someone, what do you call it? Transcribe them. And, you know, it's a no-brainer. Let's just do this. And she said, great idea. Will you help me do it? I said, sure. And we got together a couple of times and started the process. Something short-circuited with her. I don't know what it was, but we didn't go any further. But I say this when I speak, I said, I will forever be fulfilled that I had something to do with Return to Love. That was her first book. And it's probably one of the most read relationship books maybe of all time.